I'm Bruce Schwartz. Thanks so much for stopping by. Check this out, guys. We're going to get in really close again. Overdoing it. I know you guys really want me to get in close. I will. See the size of the crater here? See the distance we're at? We're going to show you the color on the surface of it all. We're in 3 times, maybe twice as close. We're seeing a cloud cover or smoke or haze on the right sides of it. So these bright areas that we see on the surface that are white and reflective are cloud cover. Most of the areas around the craters. That's exactly what we're looking at. We're not looking at ejecta, you know. So long me. That's just my belief. But as we progress in this video, we're going to see a lot of close-ups. We're going to go see Mare Nectaris. We're going to go see Theophilus, Cyrillus, Katharina crater. It's important that we notice every time the cloud cover, the smoke, the haze. No matter how clear we get the surface, it's only going to clarify the clouds. I want to look at this again. Of course, it intrigued me, and it always will every time I will go up on the moon. Some areas where, you know, and I hear people say it in the comments, why is there a floating crater? I saw a floating crater in your video. It could be a ship. It could be a ship. Yeah, absolutely. Really can be a ship. It could also be just nothing, meaning vapor, water vapor, clouds, right? Condensation. If the moon has an atmosphere, like John Lear says it does, and from what I'm seeing anyways, either way, here in X-ray, another cloud. On the left, the black is the cloud. You're seeing inverted color. And look here on the surface as it's scrolling by. I'm not going to linger very long on this because I've been talking about it, I think, for 2 or 3 days. My 3rd video. Very important for everyone to see exactly what the surface looks like, even though we don't know exactly what we are looking at. It's raw truth, and that's what I'm trying to present. And I appreciate so much for each and every one of you coming by here, taking the time out of your day to check out my research to see if I'm crazy or not. You know, it's not always easy talking about this, ufology, etc. It's still a myth for many that UFOs don't exist, you know. They've been around for hundreds of years. I assure you, hundreds and hundreds of years. Well, they've been around longer than that, but for hundreds and hundreds of years, us humans have been talking about it. And I think for thousands of years, we could see them depicted in hieroglyphs, Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's all over ancient scriptures everywhere. These are the pockets that I'm noticing, the cloud cover. And like John Lear had showed us in the living moon, in the photos of NASA photos, where I think I even remember the number. I'm not going to forget it. The Apollo 8 collection. We see clouds along the high ridges of these supposed craters. And look here, you can see the smoke actually going by. It's right there in front of us. It's clear enough for us to see, by the way. I mean, we're trying to see clouds. Let's remember that. The extraterrestrial atmosphere. Yes, and there's also the atmospheric chemistry. So many things that I'm looking up now to understand the atmosphere on other celestial objects. We know that even the gas giants, as well as Mars, Venus, and Pluto, several moons and other bodies have atmospheres. They all do, as do comets and our sun. There's also evidence that extrasolar planets can even have an atmosphere. I mean, think of it. We're not the only planet on Earth that could have life, nor are we the only planet that has an atmosphere. You know, atmospheres are different on other planets, obviously. I always said the moon is, you know, just as close to the sun almost as us. So, yeah, why not? Check it out. Close-up UFOs. This is very serious. It's on the surface, and the shadow of the craft itself, most likely, is what we're seeing on the surface. Note, it did not go into the crater. It disappeared, or it looks like it disappeared. Here it is again. I think when it propels or does a propulsion, we could see that it's shadow or something going on. Maybe the craft is the dark object. Who knows? Watch here. I'll get some circles up on them. I've slowed down. This is the closest I've ever been. This is a new one, of course, in the August footage. September 2018 footage. Look at that. It literally looks like a craft. So the craft would be probably a lot smaller than even the light we're seeing. So yeah, about a mile long, and maybe the craft itself is less than a mile long, but it has a light about a mile wide. Looks like one of the ones that we saw arriving, the two simultaneous ones with the P900 that cleared up the sky that I posted. You could see the saffron sky and all the purples and yellows everywhere. You know, what is going on up there? I think there's an atmosphere. Definitely an atmosphere up there. More than they say there is, that's for sure. You know, based on what John Lear says, I believe the guy. I'm doing the research, right? Many other channels are, and I don't know what they're finding, but all I know is that I'm finding this, and I ain't gonna hide it. I want to talk about Rayleigh scattering. Rayleigh scattering. Rayleigh scattering. What is it? It's named after the British physicist Lord Rayleigh. John William Strutt, who cares, is the predominantly elastic scattering of light. That's what I want to talk about. Other electromagnetic radiation by particles much smaller than the wavelength of the radiation. So, you know, you're looking on the surface of the moon and you're seeing a fringing blue light. Well, what's happening is that you're getting an elastic scattering, and that light by smaller molecules and particles are scattering and being seen on the surface as we see light with the sunlight. Same thing here with the wavelength, a smaller wavelength here on Earth. Make sense? That elastic scattering of light is also causing the blur on the surface, because we're seeing whatever, the water molecules, the particles, everything interacting with light on the surface and leaving us this hazy surface. Now add cloud cover to that, add an atmosphere to that. Look up atmospheric chemistry and, you know, the study and science of atmosphere interacting in the mesosphere, the stratosphere, everywhere around our planet. So I've been analyzing Earth documentation along with space documentation, but, you know, I'm realizing that science is really not that advanced in the study of, you know, extraterrestrial atmospheres, but nonetheless something extraordinarily interesting, and hope that I'm taking a part in all of it, you know, through an amateur's view of what an atmosphere can look like, signs of an atmosphere. You know, I'm not making it up. We're seeing these signs on the surface. It took me almost 2 years to realize that, hey, yeah, we're looking at clouds. You know, we're looking at the truth, but we don't know what the heck we're looking at. But it's all right there in front of us, and nonetheless, so interesting. I've done a little bit of research, and we found out that the Lunar Atmosphere and Dust Environment Explorer, they call it LADEE, LADEE. Oh, the laddie, was a NASA lunar exploration and technology demonstration mission. During its 7-month mission, you know what it did? LADEE orbited around the moon's equator. Okay, so it used its instruments to study the lunar exosphere and the dust in the moon's vicinity, because around the moon there is a lot of dust. You look in the research, even NASA itself is always talking about the dust. And I'll tell you something that I know, and not many probably do or have heard this, but I know someone directly, God bless him, he passed away just this year, but told us that when the astronauts came back, because he worked on the oxygen packs for the astronauts, and he worked at NASA from another company that was hired. So what happened is, when the astronauts came back, the suits were drenched, and the insides of the suits were filled with dust. And he said the samples that the astronauts brought back also smelled very musty. They were like, the minute they touched contact with oxygen, started reeking of, you know, a musty basement smell, you know, rock, water, you know, cave smell, which was the interaction of that leaving the surface of the moon. All these things I take into consideration and I try to remember, but it, you know, it makes a lot of sense that them coming back drenched, and you just look at their suits. I mean, they were all gray and mucky and looked filthy. But why? Why all this dust, you know? There's a lot of dust up there. It's a haze. Could be storms, right? Stellar winds or atmospherical winds, because the moon has a certain particular atmosphere. It's very interesting when you think of it. Many sources and or energy sources and activity, natural or not, on the surface occurring. One source of the lunar atmosphere is outgassing, the release of gases such as radon and helium, resulting from radioactive decay. They say it's within the crust and mantle. Another important source is the bombardment of the lunar surface by micrometeorites. They say, I've seen a couple myself. If it's really that we're seeing and not activity on the moon or companies, or it's always hard to decipher. But yeah, I've seen a meteorite hit the moon before, possibly. The solar wind and sunlight, they say, in a process known as sputtering, which is basically just caused by a massive energetic charge, like possibly a meteorite. NASA and scientists have very simple reasons to tell us why there are no seasons changing up on the surface of the moon. Did you know that? Some people think it's snowing. No, they say no anyways. And that would be supposedly due to the 1.3 degree angle tilt that the moon has compared to 23 point something of Earth's tilt. But if the moon is tilting more, and they want to play with that, if the moon is tilting more and is less, I don't think it's at 1.3 anymore. I think it's more like 2.5. Could that be why we're seeing now traces of water on the moon? Could there be a change in that? And could that be the entire tilt that they're talking about, that massive change?